It's a privilege to be here speaking to all of you today on a subject that's very close to my heart. Why can't purpose and good things coexist? Why can't we do good business while doing good? I'll straight away jump into the crux of what this entire discussion is all about. Very simply, organizations exist, businesses exist for profits, right? And everyone's aware of it. But on the other side, you have businesses that are doing good, but are they generating enough revenue? And if they're not generating enough revenue, then possibly it's doing more charity. And if you're doing more charity and not generating enough revenue, then are you going to have scale? Are you going to have influence? Are you going to expand? The answer possibly is no. But you see, there's an or at the center, right? And if I was to take a poll right now, how many of us would want to replace the or with an and? And I believe I'll get a good raise of hands. So the idea is, why can't profit and doing good coexist? And the simple answer to that is, yes, it can. And if the answer is so simple, what will it take to get this done? And it's again, the answer to that is pretty simple. Being conscious would get us there. And everyone here in the room would say, oh, I'm conscious. I know what it's all about. And actually, conscious has a very simple definition also. It's just about being aware. It's just about being aware of ourselves and what's around us. But the other side to be conscious is the bias that comes in. And there's conscious bias, and there's a lot of unconscious bias that comes in. Now, unconscious bias comes in from, say, our upbringing, our education, our culture. And a lot of what we do in our professional lives has got a lot to do with this unconscious bias that comes in. We're all media professionals out over here, right? And I'm going to take the example of, say, social media, and how has our conscious and subconscious bias has had a role to play in social media. We all know, the benefits of social media. Great content creators, people express, there's living happening out of there, there's creators generating income out of it. But what about the harmful side of social media? Misinformation, bullying, violence. And a lot of it, and all of us being responsible for funding all of this, a lot of it has got to do with our unconscious bias that comes in. Because eventually, whatever we've done has got to do something in terms of how we've reacted to certain things in the past. So the easiest thing for us was, let's stay away from everything that's harmful on social media, and we developed tools, we developed block lists. We started to alienate ourselves from things because it had a lot of unconscious bias that that had a huge role to play. And by doing this, all what we did was we gave rise to an era of exclusion, where we said the easiest thing for us to do is, let's keep ourselves away from whatever is happening there. The easiest thing to do is let's just exclude everything. By doing this, what we did was we also excluded diverse audiences. And I believe in the previous session we spoke about, how we can't ignore these kind of audiences, even though they exist. But because of the unconscious bias that we had, we took a exclusion-first approach, and we didn't reach out to them. The idea here is, how do we move away from an exclusion era to a more era of inclusion? Now, That's where a lot of work needs to be done within the media fraternity itself. Uh, you know, I'm not here to guide or teach anything related to the media principles, but whatever you see on my left, where the arrow goes down, is where we've done fabulous amount of work to reduce everything. Let's reduce the audience size. Let's reduce wherever the brand risk is. Reduce everything that's here. Have we done enough on the right side to increase things? Are we doing enough to increase the potential audiences and so on and so forth? Now that's an answer that one would want to take away from this and say that, are we doing enough? We're doing a fabulous job to reduce things, but are we doing enough to increase? Which then brings me to the next part, saying that, you know, if the media fraternity and the media ecosystem needs to have a good role to play in societal impact, then we definitely can constrain negativity, which is what we've done a fabulous job in that. You know, we've constrained a lot of negativity. But how do we amplify positivity? How do we be a part of this inclusion culture and have a larger role to play in amplifying positivity? I'm just going to put up a slide here for a brand that we've worked in Europe, and just see how this brand reached out to diverse creators with a more inclusive approach. Some of these topics would be considered taboo. Marketers probably sitting in this room would say, oh, my block list has got all these things blocked and we don't want to touch them. But look at the impact of this as I move along, saying that creators talking about sustainability, creators talking about disability, sustainability. Even today, when we look at some of your block lists, you'll find climate change and global warming are topics that have been blocked. Now, is this a taboo today? The answer is we've done work with a number of brands, and we've got to move in the area of inclusion as we move along. And this is just smart media targeting, right? On how do you have a more inclusive audience when you're looking, when you're looking at your campaign plans, when you're looking to reach out to diverse set of audiences. This would play a very important role. All of us would say, all this is great, but what's a proof of concept? Has anyone does this in the past? Or you're just talking from your thing saying that, oh, this is great. No, let's see what Mark Pichard had to say about it. The 3-year growth that P&G has seen for their brands, most of it has happened by including audiences that were previously excluded, which means the exclusion era, which was there, was great. But there's a time has come to look at a more inclusion-first approach, and that's a proof of concept. And I also thought this is a great stage for us at Channel Factory to kind of announce the launch of our conscious advertising program in India, and how we see diversity, whether it comes to topics related to sustainability, whether it's gender inclusion, and things like those. How do we look at that? And today I formally announced the launch of the conscious advertising program here in India from a Channel Factory perspective, looking at including a more diverse set of audiences for our marketers and our brands. You'd say, this is great, all this sounds great, this is done. Where do we go from here? It just brings me to our quick manifesto in terms of, this is great, but anyone's aware of the DOT principle? Anyone in the crowd? The DOT principle? Just do one thing. Just do one thing to make a difference, because if you do one thing, the lady sitting on your right would do another, and to her right would do the other. And one thing would go to another thing, and that's how the circle would get completed. So I leave you with this thought in terms of how to look at a more inclusion-led approach when you're looking at your audiences, looking at plans, and so on and so forth, rather than taking the approach which has been tried and probably tested, which was a more exclusion-first approach. So that was a quick one in terms of how we are looking at things and how we evaluate things. So have a great one from here on. Thank you.